Red may show intrusion. This map visualizes attacks detected by Fortinet security sensors worldwide, giving us a window into the cyber battlefield that never sleeps. Notice the constant activity between North America and Europe. These regions host some of the largest digital infrastructures, data centers, cloud providers, and critical services, making them prime targets. The colors on the map represent different attack categories. For example, red may show intrusion attempts, green may represent malware callbacks, and yellow could highlight botnet traffic. Let's break down what we're seeing. An intrusion attempt is when an attacker tries to exploit a system vulnerability, like an unpatched server. A malware attack means a device has been compromised and is now attempting to connect to a command and control server. Botnet traffic suggests multiple compromised machines being coordinated to launch distributed attacks. Did you know the average time between a vulnerability being published and being actively exploited is less than 48 hours? This is why patch management is critical. What you're seeing on your screen is a visualization of attacks happening across the globe right now. Each line represents an attempt to compromise a system, a piece of malware reaching out to its command center, or a botnet probing for the next vulnerable device. The internet never sleeps, and as we sit here, thousands of malicious connections are being detected and stopped by Fortinet security sensors. This is the front line of cybersecurity, a place where threats move faster than we can imagine. As the map comes alive, notice how attacks never stop. They shift, they rise and fall in volume, but there's always a constant hum of activity. Regions with higher connectivity and denser infrastructure often see the busiest flows. Where there are more users, more servers, and more digital services, there are also more attempts to break in. This constant battle shows why cybersecurity isn't just about responding after the fact. It's about anticipating and defending in real time. Every connection here is a story. A probe against a firewall, a phishing attempt delivered through email, or a malicious program trying to spread to its next victim. Behind each of these moving lines is intent. Some attackers are motivated by profit, launching ransomware campaigns, or stealing credentials. Others may be engaged in espionage, quietly collecting information. And some attacks are automated, with infected devices endlessly scanning for new systems to compromise. The live threat map doesn't show us names or details, but it does give us a sense of scale. The internet is vast, yet threats are constantly crossing its borders, probing weaknesses in every region. What may look like a stream of lights here actually represents the tireless work of defenders and the relentless persistence of attackers. As we continue watching, notice the rhythm. Sometimes bursts of activity spike as a campaign surges, then the flow steadies again. This is the pulse of the digital world. What's fascinating is that while these attacks are happening everywhere, most of them are invisible to everyday users. People go about their day, streaming, working, and shopping online, unaware that their security often relies on layers of defense blocking these threats in the background. Cybersecurity is like an immune system for the digital age. It works constantly, often unnoticed, but always vital. One of the most important lessons from observing this map is that the internet is interconnected. An attack launched in one region can instantly ripple to another. Malware doesn't respect borders, and botnets don't care about time zones. A vulnerability discovered today can be exploited across the globe within hours. This is why organizations adopt real-time intelligence. Threat data is gathered, analyzed, and distributed to defenses everywhere, so a discovery in one place can help protect another. What you're seeing is proof of that global cooperation. Every blocked attack here is a victory made possible by shared knowledge and automated response. Notice how no region is quiet. Even where digital infrastructure is less dense, attacks still appear. The truth is, if a device is connected, it can be targeted. What changes is the intensity and the type of attacks. Some regions might see more automated scanning, while others experience heavier waves of coordinated campaigns. Yet the reality is universal. Everyone connected to the internet is part of this environment, and everyone needs protection. Watching this map is a reminder of how constant and borderless cyber risk has become. As we near the end of this session, the flow of attacks continues without pause. What's striking is the scale. Thousands upon thousands of attempts happening in just these 2 hours. Imagine extending this view across days, weeks, and months. The sheer volume is staggering. And yet, despite this, organizations and individuals continue to thrive online, thanks to layered defenses, vigilance, and awareness. Watching this map is both humbling and motivating. It shows the threats are real, but it also shows that defense is possible, and that technology and people working together can make a difference. For the past 2 hours, we've witnessed the invisible world of cyber threats made visible. Each line was a reminder that the digital landscape is alive with activity, that attackers never rest, and that defenders must always be ready. The FortiGuard Live Threat Map is not just a visualization, it's a window into the reality of cybersecurity. As we close this session, remember that security is not a one-time effort. It is ongoing, evolving, and shared. Thank you for joining this live watch. Stay informed, stay secure, and until next time, remember, the cyber world never sleeps. Cybersecurity is not just about firewalls, passwords, and technical tools. At its core, it's about understanding threats, predicting them, and protecting what matters most. One of the most powerful ways organizations achieve this is through threat intelligence. This is the ability to gather information about emerging dangers, study the methods attackers use, and translate that knowledge into defenses before damage occurs. Threat intelligence turns the unknown into the known, making it possible to act not just reactively, but proactively. But even with intelligence at hand, the human factor often becomes the easiest way in for attackers. Social engineering is the art of deception, where instead of breaking down digital walls, attackers simply trick people into opening the door. A well-crafted email, a convincing phone call, or a message that seems ordinary can be enough to bypass the most advanced technologies. It reminds us that while machines fight code, people fight trust, and that awareness is as crucial as software in the battle against cybercrime. For organizations, the responsibility is larger than technology alone. They carry the duty of safeguarding employees, customers, and partners, because every compromised system has a ripple effect beyond the walls of the business. Security is no longer optional or a background function. It's an obligation woven into the way modern organizations must operate. Protecting digital environments is part of protecting reputation, continuity, and ultimately, the trust that keeps relationships alive. At the heart of it all are critical assets, the information, systems, and processes that a business cannot survive without. This could be customer data, financial records, or the operational technology that keeps essential services running. Attackers know the value of these assets, and that is exactly why they target them. Defenders, therefore, must know that value too, treating these assets not as ordinary resources, but as lifelines that must be guarded with vigilance. When we look at cybersecurity through these lenses, intelligence, deception, duty, and criticality, a clear picture emerges. This is not just a technical field. It is a human one, a strategic one, and a responsibility that grows as our world becomes more connected. The future belongs to those who can combine knowledge with action, resilience with awareness, and protection with foresight. Cybersecurity, at its heart, is a contest of strategy. It is not simply a matter of blocking a single attempt or reacting to an isolated breach. It is about understanding how an attacker thinks, how they move, and how their actions unfold step by step. This understanding is captured in what is called the attack kill chain, a model that traces the journey of an adversary from the moment they plan an intrusion to the moment they attempt to achieve their objectives. The kill chain is more than a diagram or a framework. It is a story of persistence, deception, and adaptation on both sides of the battlefield. The idea first gained prominence through the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain, a framework that brought military thinking into the digital realm. In traditional warfare, a kill chain describes the process of identifying a target, assigning forces, attacking, and confirming results. In cyberspace, the same principles apply, but instead of tanks and aircraft, we see reconnaissance tools, malware, and lateral movement. What Lockheed Martin contributed was a clear structure that defenders could follow. If you can recognize each step of an attack, you can intervene earlier, disrupt progress, and deny the adversary their goal. At the beginning of this chain lies reconnaissance. Attackers rarely strike blindly. They study their targets, gathering intelligence about networks, employees, exposed systems, and even the culture of an organization. This may happen through scanning IP ranges, analyzing publicly available information, or quietly monitoring social media for insights that make an intrusion easier. In many ways, reconnaissance is the attacker's research phase, and it is often invisible to the target. Yet this is also where defenders can gain an edge. By understanding what information is publicly exposed and monitoring for unusual probing, they can frustrate the adversary before the campaign truly begins. After reconnaissance comes weaponization, the transformation of knowledge into a tool of intrusion. In the Lockheed Martin model, this means pairing an exploit with a payload, something that can be delivered to the target to open a door inside their environment. It might be a malicious attachment crafted for a specific vulnerability or custom malware designed to evade detection. The point is that an attacker does not stop with intelligence gathering. They mold that intelligence into a weapon ready for delivery. This step reminds us of how threat intelligence and vulnerability management intersect. If an organization knows which vulnerabilities are being actively exploited in the wild, they can patch, monitor, and defend accordingly, narrowing the adversary's options. Delivery is the moment the weaponized tool meets its target. Sometimes it is as simple as a phishing email that convinces an employee to click a link or download a file. Other times it might be a compromised website, a poisoned USB stick, or a direct exploitation attempt against an exposed system. Delivery is where the adversary crosses into the environment, attempting to bypass the first lines of defense. Defenders who are alert at this stage can block attachments, filter suspicious traffic, or detect anomalies that suggest a delivery attempt is underway. If the delivery succeeds, exploitation begins. This is the act of triggering a vulnerability, executing code, or establishing a foothold in the system. It is often quick and silent, but it is a critical turning point in the chain. Exploitation means that the attacker has transitioned from the outside to the inside, and now the real battle begins. Detection tools such as endpoint monitoring, intrusion prevention systems, and behavioral analytics are often most effective at this juncture, where the first abnormal actions can be identified. Installation follows, where the attacker plants malware, backdoors, or persistence mechanisms to ensure continued access. For defenders, this is a dangerous stage because the longer malicious code sits undetected, the more time the adversary has to adapt and spread. This is why endpoint detection and response, regular integrity checks, and monitoring of unusual processes are crucial in modern defense strategies. Attackers thrive on persistence. But persistence also leaves footprints, and footprints can be found. With installation complete, attackers seek command and control. They need a way to communicate with their malicious tools, to send instructions, extract data, and adjust tactics. Command and control traffic often blends into normal network flows, disguised through encryption or masquerading as legitimate services. This is where threat intelligence becomes vital. By studying the infrastructure and communication methods of known adversaries, defenders can recognize and block these connections, cutting off the lifeline that keeps the intrusion alive. Finally comes the action on objectives, the moment the attacker attempts to achieve what they came for. It might be stealing data, encrypting files for ransom, disrupting operations, or escalating further to additional systems. At this stage, the adversary is no longer just probing, they are striking. For defenders, this is where damage can become real, but it is also where well-prepared organizations can respond, isolate systems, and recover. The earlier stages of the kill chain are easier to disrupt, but even here, resilience and preparation can blunt the impact. While the Lockheed Martin kill chain gave defenders a clear way to map attacks, it was not the only framework to emerge. The MITRE ATT and CK framework expanded the concept into a far more granular view, cataloging real-world tactics, techniques, and procedures used by adversaries. Instead of a linear chain, ATT and CK presents a matrix, showing how attackers can maneuver in countless ways once they gain access. Where Lockheed Martin focused on stages, MITRE focuses on behavior, giving defenders a rich library of patterns to look for in logs, alerts, and activity. The power of ATT and CK is that it is based on observation, not theory. It reflects what attackers actually do, which means defenders can test their own resilience against realistic threats that NIST, too, contributes a broader lens through its cybersecurity framework, which doesn't just map the adversary's steps, but aligns security activities into identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. This holistic view connects the technical insights of kill chains and behavior models with organizational duty. It asks not only whether you can stop an attack in progress, but also whether you have identified your critical assets, protected them appropriately, and prepared for recovery in the event of compromise. In this sense, NIST complements the more detailed frameworks by grounding them in business context. The attack kill chain, whichever model you use, is not simply a tool for academics or analysts. It is a mindset. It forces defenders to think like attackers, to walk through the steps of an intrusion, and to recognize that every phase offers an opportunity to intervene. The longer an adversary progresses along the chain, the harder it becomes to stop them. But every step is also a chance for defenders to disrupt, delay, or deny progress. This constant push and pull defines the reality of modern cybersecurity. It is also important to recognize that attackers do not always move neatly through the stages. They skip, repeat, and loop back, adapting as they encounter obstacles. A phishing campaign may fail, only to be followed by a direct exploit attempt. A command and control server may be blocked, prompting the attacker to establish another channel. The frameworks give us structure, but the reality is fluid, and defenders must remain flexible as well. Social engineering fits into this narrative as well, because many intrusions do not begin with technical exploits, but with human deception. Reconnaissance may involve collecting personal details from social networks. Delivery may be disguised as a convincing email from a trusted colleague. Exploitation may rely less on code and more on the simple act of an employee entering credentials into a fake login page. The kill chain accommodates these variations because what matters is not the specific tool, but the progression of control. What ties all of this together is the recognition that security is not about perfection, but about resilience. No organization can block every reconnaissance scan or eliminate every vulnerability. But by mapping defenses to the stages of an attack, they can improve their odds of detecting and stopping adversaries earlier. Threat intelligence plays a vital role